them touchdown passes.
Peyton bounces around, throws. The ball will be caught. Julius Thomas, touchdown Denver.
What is up, guys? In this segment, Beyond the Sport, I'm going to be giving my season win totals for each team in the league. I'm going to be predicting all the records. And how I'm going to do it is I'm going to break up each team by division, starting from the AFC East, for example, all the way down to the AFC South. And same goes for the NFC. I'm going to be categorizing the teams based on that, the way that we would see the standings shape out come playoff time. That is going to be for the upcoming season. Obviously, with the draft and free agency, there's been a lot of changes to these different teams. Some teams look like they may be tanking. Some look like they're maybe poised for a playoff berth, something that this franchise in particular hasn't seen in a while. And some may be competing for championships. So I'm going to break them down and show who deserves to be where and how I think it's going to end up. I've seen a lot of these recently. Everyone comes out with these, all these different analysts. Some are good and some are completely terrible. Who knows how good mine will end up being in the end, because there's just no way to predict injuries. There's no way to predict a ton of different variables that could sidetrack teams and give us a completely different outlook on them and how their regular season end up going. But I'm going to make one nonetheless because I'm actually kind of energized about it, because I've seen some really bad ones that really caught my attention. And obviously everyone is entitled to their own opinion. People view teams differently. But I feel like I'm obligated to give one myself because of that, and I got to put out the one that I truly believe is most likely to happen to kind of combat the bad ones out there, because there's a lot of questionable record predictions for all these teams. So that's what I'm going to do. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but make sure to check it out and enjoy.
Starting off with the AFC East, this is a division that I see the New England Patriots winning once again with a record of 11-5. The only difference being this year they won't be quite as dominant with the departure of Tom Brady and just overall weapons on the offensive side of the ball. I do see the Buffalo Bills being right behind them with a 10-6 record, because the way that I see it is it's a two-team race between these two teams, but for my decision making in this one, I see it as this: for as long as Bill Belichick is at the helm, head coaching the Patriots, they are going to be my favorite to win that division, because although the Bills have made some improvements and there's a team like the Jets that have some solid talent for a 7-9 win team, I do think that the Patriots will continue to win this division once again because of the brilliance of Bill Belichick. He's able to figure out ways to win games no matter the talent that he has on his squad, and I don't see any difference in this. Some people want to say that they're going to tank for Trevor Lawrence, although I do agree this is a great year to do that because he's one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen coming out of college in a while. That's just not in the formula, and that's not in the DNA of the Patriots. That's not how they win games. That's not how they've had their dynasty. I understand that there's some changes as far as the players on the roster, but I would like to say that the success belongs in large part to Bill Belichick as opposed to anyone else throughout the last 2 decades. This is a division in the AFC North that I see the Baltimore Ravens winning yet again. We see it constantly where teams digress a little bit after having such a successful season. Last year they won 14 of their 16 regular season games. They had an incredible year behind Lamar Jackson in his MVP season, but I think that they improved the roster through the draft and free agency. We can expect them to be just as good. I just think because of competitive balance with teams like the Steelers being better this year with Big Ben back, I think that 13-3 suits them pretty well. I do think that the Cleveland Browns are going to make a huge leap and win 10 games this year and fight for a wild card spot, which I think they will get, because this is a team that has the talent. They just needed to get rid of Freddie Kitchens, get some new coaching, new personnel in there. I think that they can win with Stefanski. So you bring in that, and I think that they're going to be a very competitive team. As for the Steelers, who are one other competitive team that has a chance, especially since there's going to be 7 teams in the AFC because of the new playoff format. I think that they're a talented team. Getting Big Ben helps, but we don't know what we're going to see from him because recovering from the elbow surgery with the Tommy John that he faced in the offseason, I just think that that's a lot to overcome for a quarterback, especially at his age. So I think there's too many unknown variables. They have a talented defense. I trust that side of the ball. But as for the quarterback play, it was very unimpressive last year when he did go down. So being that there's uncertainty with him returning at the level that he used to play at, I can't put them any higher than 9 wins this year. Then in the AFC South division, I have the Tennessee Titans winning the division with a record of 10-6. This is going to be another rather competitive division. It could be a 2 or 3 team race between them, the Colts, and the Texans. The way I see it shaping out, though, is the Titans come out on top. They're a team that played extremely well, had a great playoff run all the way to the AFC Championship game where they eventually lost to the eventual Super Bowl champions and the Kansas City Chiefs. They're a team that I don't think necessarily got better, but they also didn't get worse. They're going to be relatively similar to what they were last year. If Tannehill can play similar to how he did then, I think that they're going to be a very good team. Obviously, they had to rely on Derrick Henry putting up some incredible numbers. I think that he's built to be able to take on a large load to do it again. I think the Colts with Philip Rivers are going to be a solid adversary for them because they're a team that has a veteran quarterback, some pieces on defense, and one of the top offensive lines, which I think is going to go a long way for Philip because he hasn't had that luxury back when he was with the Chargers. I see these two teams battling it out. Then on over to the AFC West, I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning the division with a record of 12-4. They are the defending champs, so you have to put them up there. I believe there's no surprise among anyone about having them winning the division, but I do think where a lot of people will be surprised is the other 3 teams behind them because I think it's going to be a very close race, and it's going to come down to the final stretch of games before they finally pull away with the division. I have the Denver Broncos going 10-6, only 2 games behind them, and as you can see, it's very well balanced division. These are incredibly talented football teams, especially the Chargers. They catch my eye because of the talent they have on the defensive side of the ball. When you have guys like Derwin James, Bosa, and Ingram, it just comes down to staying healthy more than anything. Difficult with the uncertainty at quarterback for them with Justin Herbert and Tyrod Taylor. And same goes for the Raiders. There's a ton of talent on that roster. I know they had some emerging young players in Josh Jacobs and Max Crosby. And then you look over to the Broncos, who have Drew Lock, an abundance of weapons that they were able to get him through the draft and free agency. That defense is going to be nasty like usual. So although the Chiefs are the clear-cut favorite, and there's no doubt about that, I do think that it can be a very competitive division from top to bottom. In the NFC East, I have the Dallas Cowboys winning the division with a 10-6 record. This is a team that has a ton of talent. They did not perform up to their standard level of play based on the level of talent that they did possess last season. They have a lot of guys returning. I expect this to be a team that continues to compete at a high level. They will definitely raise their level of play from last year. They had a phenomenal draft, a solid free agency, and I think when you mix those two together, they're bringing in new young talent to go with the vets that they already have. Obviously, there's contract issues with them, but I think they'll get the job done ultimately. Then with the Philadelphia Eagles, they did come away with the division last year with a 9-7 record. I think they're going to play at a similar level and find a way to win 9 games and have a chance at a wild card spot. This is a team that I didn't like the way that they drafted, but I do know that they did a good job of addressing the wide receiver need. So I think that Carson Wentz has some weapons overall, and that's going to be enough to allow them to win those 9 games. Then when you get to the Giants and the Redskins, these are 2 teams that just aren't ready to win now. I think that there's a lot of rebuilding that they're going to have to do around the talent that they have. Over on the NFC North side of things, I have the Green Bay Packers win the division with an 11-5 record. I do think that they're naturally going to digress from that 13-3 season that we saw last year. A lot of people wanted to call it a fluke. I do think that as far as 13-3 teams go, they didn't seem like a contender in the way that those teams like the Saints or the Niners or the Ravens at 14-2, like those teams were kind of in a different tier, or at least it felt that way. Of course, they were a contending team, but not in that sense. But this is a team with Aaron Rodgers who is getting older. They didn't get him any weapons in a perfect draft to do that. I think that this is a team that's going to take a couple steps back, but based on the division that they're in, I expect them to still win it with this record. Then right behind them, because the way I see it is another one of those where it's a 2-team race, and that's how most of these divisions shape out. but I do see the Minnesota Vikings going 9-7. I think that they're going to get a wild card. There's teams like I mentioned, like the Eagles, that are also going to go 9-7. It's going to help that they expanded the playoff format to add an extra team into the thick of things, but I think that they're going to be another one of those teams. Kirk Cousins led them, and they upset the Saints, so I think that we can expect a team like the Vikings to make it back. They lost some talent with Stephon Diggs being traded, but they got Justin Jefferson to replace him, so I do think that they're going to be able to do just enough to finish with a record that gets them to the postseason. Then on over to the NFC South. This is a division that's seen a lot of new faces that are coming into these teams. One of them that has been relatively the same, though, is the New Orleans Saints. I have them winning the division with a 13-3 record, led by the veteran quarterback Drew Brees. This is a team with a ton of talent. They managed to get Emmanuel Sanders in free agency, and they were able to retain Taysom Hill as well, that Swiss Army knife. They've got a lot to like on the defensive side of the ball as well. This is a very well-rounded team. I expect them to be one of the top teams in the NFC as a whole. Then when you get to it, the team below them, the team with the most hype, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have them going 10-6. I do think that having the veteran quarterback in Tom Brady is going to help. They're going to reduce the turnover numbers. He's going to be a game manager. He's going to make sure to keep the ball going in the right direction. So I think that's going to help a lot, because Jameis Winston was not able to do that. They had far too many turnovers. He has all the weapons in the world to get the ball to. They are a vertical offense, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works out for Tom, as that's not quite the style of play he's used to. There's a lot of checkdowns, a lot of dink and dumps over to his wide receivers across the middle. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes out. But I think that those are the two teams to look out for playoff spots. As for the Falcons and the Carolina Panthers, I just don't see them finding a way to overcome all the adversities that they're going to face, being that they're going to have to face two very good teams in both the Saints and the Buccaneers. Then to finish it off in the NFC West, I have the San Francisco 49ers winning the division with a 12-4 record. Last year, they represented the NFC in the Super Bowl, loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're a very competitive team. They went 13-3 last year. I expect them to digress just a little bit, just because of the nature of things and how they tend to go. Being a team that lost in the Super Bowl, it's hard to return. I do think that there are a team that can, but I think that they go 12-4. It's going to be a very competitive division with teams like the Cardinals on the rise. I do think the Seahawks will be right there behind them, just like they were last season. And I have the Seahawks finishing with a 10-6 record. The magic of Russell Wilson can continue to push that team forward alongside the coaching of Pete Carroll. They're a team that seems to not have the best of drafts. I didn't like what they did this year, especially when you compare it to a team like the 49ers, a draft that I absolutely loved. I think that they made some questionable picks. They reached on some players, but they just always seem to be able to find a way to get the job done, and I think that they're going to be able to lock up another playoff spot. Then for the Arizona Cardinals, they're a team on the rise. They had the best trade of the offseason by getting DeAndre Hopkins for just about nothing based on the value that he provides as one of the top receivers in the league. And I think that they're building something very good around Kyler Murray. They didn't do enough to improve the O-line for me to be convinced that they're going to be a big threat in that division. Not yet, at least. It's going to take some time. I love the Josh Jones picks there in the third round, but I think that they're going to have to continue to build up front if they're going to be able to win more football games.
Thanks again, guys, for watching this video. And make sure to tell me in the comments what you disagree with, what you agree with, what you liked most, and where you think I'm completely wrong. Because I know I like to express my opinion the same way when I see some of these predictions that I completely disagree with. Some make me shake my head in disgust. So feel free to do the same if you disagree, and give your side of the argument as to why I am wrong about a particular team if you feel that way. Also, make sure to follow on Instagram at Beyond the Sport. It's a very good account. I try and keep up with it as best I can, and in this account, it's going to give you some behind-the-scenes details and a little bit of bonus content that you wouldn't be able to access here on YouTube. So I'd appreciate it if you give that a follow so that you can access as much content as you possibly can. Have a good one.